accept that the only choice now is to put this back to the people?
As I've said, I made my position clear on that. Can I just say to the right honourable gentleman that I think it is a little difficult for many of us in this House to hear him week after week stand up and say that the UK should stay within in the European Union, when Scottish independence would have meant taking Scotland out of the European Union.
Dr. Andrew Murison. Order. A lot of noise. Let's hear the right honourable gentleman. Dr. Andrew Murison.
Surplus waste incinerator capacity is taking pressure off efforts to reuse, recycle and reduce waste. Will the government strengthen its bid to host the 2020 UN Climate Change Conference by putting a moratorium on new incinerator, gasification and pyrolysis applications, including the one in Westbury in my constituency?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for raising this issue and for highlighting the fact that we are bidding to host COP26. The issue of incineration, I understand, is a crucial one, particularly for certain local areas. We do want to maximise the amount of waste that is sent to recycling rather than to incineration and landfill. And waste plants play and continue to play an important role in reducing the rubbish sent to landfill. But we do welcome work to drive down waste to landfill further. But if wider policies don't deliver our waste ambitions in the future, including those higher recycling rates, then we will consider the introduction of a tax on the incineration of waste, and this would operate in conjunction with the landfill tax and take into account the possible impact on local authorities.
Ronnie Campbell.
Charlie Foster, one of my young constituents, aged 7, has got cystic fibrosis. When he has an attack, it's like breathing from a straw. I've never tried the test, but I'm going to try it when I get back in my constituency. These young people are suffering very badly because of a drug called O-Combi, which has not been licensed by NICE. It has a 42% increase in lung capacity for these kids, and it stops them being sent straight to hospital, which they have to when they have the attack. So can the Prime Minister try and get this drug across the line and give these kids, like Charlie Foster, a quality of life?
Can I first of all say to the honourable gentleman that I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House are with Charlie and his family, and we recognise the significant concerns there are in relation to this access to this drug. On the 11th of March, my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health, held a meeting with the company Vertex, with NHS England and NICE, and they discussed how best to reach a deal so that people with cystic fibrosis and their families can benefit as soon as possible. They've met again later on in March, and they're continuing those discussions, but I will ensure that the case that the honourable gentleman has raised and the importance of this issue is once again brought to the attention of the Department of Health.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee produced an excellent report on leasehold reform. And with the doubling of ground rents, outrageous charges for permission for minor improvements, and the absolute scandal of developers selling the freeholds without even contacting leaseholders, this market is broken. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that we cannot rely on voluntary codes to set this right, and we need legislation in this House to restore fairness to the housing market?
Well, can I first of all thank the Select Committee for their report? Can I also thank my honourable friend for the way in which he has championed issues around housing, and his act is already having an effect on homelessness reduction. We've already committed to legislate to reduce ground rent on future leases to a peppercorn. For current leaseholders, we have been working with the industry to get existing leases with onerous ground rent terms changed to a better deal. Leaseholders of flats do have a right of first refusal when their freeholder is planning to sell the property. We're considering introducing a right of first refusal for house lessees as well. And last year we made our commitment to consider a range of charges facing leaseholders and freeholders, including permission fees, and in what circumstances they're justified and whether they should be capped or banned. And I've asked Lord Best to chair a working group to look at regulating and professionalising property agents. We're carefully considering the Select Committee's report, but my honourable friend is absolutely right. If we believe that a market is not working properly, then we should act to deal with that.
No fairness.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister will be aware of the Channel 4 Dispatch's investigation aired last week into the extent of the involvement of both BAE and the British military personnel in the tragic war in Yemen. In the programme, it was claimed that BAE carry out 95% of the preparations for Typhoon bombing raids, including the one that killed 40 school children in August of last year. Will the government act now to review arms export licences to Saudi Arabia and the British complicity in these bombings?
Can I say to the Honourable Lady that we have one of the toughest regimes in relation to the export of arms across the world. She references the situation in Yemen. That we're very clear that that cannot go on. It's 4 years since the beginning of this devastating conflict, and there needs to be a political settlement. And we are working with and backing work that is being done by the UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths. The parties have made significant progress towards an agreement to implement Phase 1 of the redeployment of forces from Hodeida, and we're urging all parties to honour the agreements that were made in Stockholm. Our total bilateral commitment to Yemen since the start of the conflict now stands at £770 million. We're backing the UN peace process. The coalition is there, and it's been acknowledged by the United Nations, is there at the request of the government of the Yemen. We've been backing the United Nations peace process and will continue to do so, and we will continue to provide humanitarian support to the people of Yemen.
Daniel Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Children in Shrewsbury receive on average £4,350 per annum for their education. Their counterparts in Hackney receive over 50% more at £6,590. These huge regional differences in funding for our schools are leading to real problems in Shropshire for supporting children with special educational needs and in the fabric of our school buildings. When will this Conservative government finally tackle the huge differences in regional funding for our schools?
And can I say to my honourable friend that we're obviously working to improve education for every child, regardless of what part of the country they live in or what their background is. As I made clear earlier, we are putting more funding into our schools through to 2020, and we've recently announced an extra £250 million for over 2 years for the high needs budget, together with extra money that is being put in for children with special educational needs. But my honourable friend references the funding formula and the distribution of funds. The new national funding formula is about distributing funds more fairly, and historically underfunded schools will be receiving the biggest increases of up to 6% per pupil this year through the schools formula, and will also be allocating additional funding to small remote schools that play an essential part in rural communities. We've recognised the need to introduce a fairer funding formula, and that is what we're doing.
Sir Mark Hendrick.
Mr. Speaker, in 2010, when the party opposite took office, child poverty had been falling continuously in Preston for 16 years. Today, according to government figures, 38% of children in Preston, that is nearly 8,000 kids, are living in poverty. Food banks are being overrun, and what is accelerating this demand? The rollout of universal credit from July of last year. Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Prime Minister, when is she going to scrap universal credit?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman, the way to ensure that we develop a sustainable solution to poverty is a strong economy and a welfare system that helps people into work. That is what universal credit does. 200,000 more people in work as a result of introducing universal credit. Because work is the best route out of poverty, and the evidence is, that a child growing up in a home where all the adults work is around 5 times less likely to be in poverty than a home where nobody works. What we're doing is making sure we encourage people into the workplace. There are more jobs out there, more people in work, a record level of people in employment. Work is the best route out of poverty.
Theresa May.
On Monday, a constituent contacted me to tell me that 3 men armed with a knife had tried to rob his 15-year-old son as he walked from a friend's home in a neighbouring borough. My constituent expressed his frustration that police stations are closing and he never seems to see police on the beat any longer. To keep our young people safe, isn't it time the Mayor of London reversed his decision to close Barnet Police Station and others in the London suburbs?
can I say to my right honourable friend, she's absolutely right that decisions on the closure of police stations across London are a matter for the Mayor of London. And we have been protecting police funding. This year there'll be almost £1 billion extra available for the police, and the Metropolitan Police are receiving up to £2.7 billion in funding in 2019-20, which is an increase on last year. We will always ensure the police have the powers and resources they need, but it's important that people recognise the responsibilities of police and crime commissioners and the decisions they take, and in London that's the Labour Mayor of London.
Jamie Stone.
Mr. Speaker, I really think it would be unwise of me to mention any hotels in the Highlands this week. At Dounreay, in my constituency in Caithness, we have a skills pool which is second to none. And as Dounreay continues to decommission, it is vital that we redeploy these skills to the maximum benefit of the local economy and indeed the UK economy. Can the Prime Minister give me an undertaking that the Government will work very closely with the management of Dounreay, the relevant local trade unions and indeed the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority to make sure that this redeployment of skills actually happens to the benefit of the UK?
Yes, I'm happy to say to the honourable gentleman, I recognise first of all that this must be a time of concern for staff at Dounreay. It is important that we recognise the skills that have been developed there and make sure that we're taking every opportunity to put these to the benefit not just of local people but, as he says, of the United Kingdom. We welcome the Dounreay site restoration's statement of support for its staff, its intention to support them through a transition into other employment. And I understand they'll develop training and support programmes to put individuals in the strongest possible position to move into another local job with one of the growing industries, such as space, which the honourable gentleman has already referenced in previous Prime Minister's questions, or renewable energy. We do remain, he asked about the Government's commitment, we remain absolutely committed to supporting the region and the staff affected. We'll continue to work with the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, with the Dounreay Site Restoration Limited, Cavendish Nuclear, Jacobs and AECOM during this time.
Damien Moore.
The Access for All programme championed by this Conservative government is helping more disabled people, more elderly people and more people with prams and pushchairs access our stations with greater ease. After my campaign in Southport, Hillside Station was a successful recipient of some of this funding. Will my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, do more in this area so more of our stations right across the country truly give access for all?
Can I say to my honourable friend, can I congratulate him on a successful campaign that he ran to get that access at Hillside Station? We do need to ensure that we continue this programme of ensuring that we are able to open up routes for disabled people by ensuring they have that access to stations. We are moving closer to a transport sector that is truly accessible. The changes that will take place at Hillside is an example of that. If the programme continues to be delivered successfully, the Department of Transport will make submissions for further funding in due course. But it is absolutely clear that we are providing those extra opportunities for disabled people. I'm pleased to say that I think it's 900,000 more disabled people now in the workplace. Access is important for them, and the campaign that my honourable friend and others of my honourable and right honourable friends have run to get access to their stations has been an important part of that.
In wishing the honourable gentleman a happy birthday, I call Luke Pollard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you may know, there are 53 Mondays this year where rent is due for people who pay their rent on a weekly basis, but there are only 52 universal credit payments this year. The DWP have acknowledged that this is a problem they are awaiting government action on. Could the Prime Minister confirm that she recognises this problem and will act to ensure that people don't need to find an extra week's rent or go into debt because of this entirely predictable universal credit fault?
Well, can I say to the honourable gentleman, he's raised this point, of course, it's worth pointing out no year actually contains 53 weeks. So if somebody does pay a 53rd rent payment in a given year, this payment will cover some days in the subsequent year and will mean that the following month only has 4 payment dates, and as such the claimant will be overpaid for their housing and a shortfall is immediately recovered. But it is about the way in which the days fall and making sure the system does work for everybody.
Henry Smith.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister is seeking a year-long extension to Brexit, does she not recognise that that, of course, would cost over £1 billion a month to the British taxpayer in subscriptions to the EU? And does she not agree that that funding would be better spent on tackling crime, funding schools and even tax cuts for my constituents and constituents up and down the country.
Hear, hear.
I say to my honourable friend, I'm pressing the case for the extension that I wrote to Donald Tusk about last week, that in fact was endorsed by Parliament last night. But can I also say to my honourable friend that I think it is important, we could actually have been outside the European Union by now if we'd managed to get the deal through, and I'm continuing to work to ensure that we can deliver Brexit and can do that in a way that works for people across this country.
Mr. Stephen Hepburn.
What would the Prime Minister boast is her government's greater achievement? The Brexit shambles, rise in knife crime, record numbers using food banks, pay packets worth less than a decade ago, or the smallest army since Waterloo?
I'll tell the honourable gentleman. I'll tell the honourable gentleman what I'm proud of this government achieving. We see more people in work than ever before. We have seen tax cuts for 32 million people. We're seeing wages rising. We're seeing the deficit falling, debt coming down. We're restoring this country's finances. That builds a brighter future for all our constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to see more women on the boards of big business. So will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Ruth Carney, who's recently been appointed the chair of Babcock International, first female chair they've ever had, and hopefully she will improve the company's fortunes.
Can I thank my honourable friend for raising this issue? I'm very happy to congratulate Ruth Carney for achieving that role as chairman of Babcock. The government has been working and has done a lot since 2010 to see more women on the boards of companies. I think this is very important. The greater diversity we have on those boards, the better those companies will do.
Wayne David.
For the Prime Minister's visit to Brussels, I have a little light reading for her. It's a graph of police funding from the government in Gwent. It shows very clearly, that police funding is going down, not up. So will she study this carefully and come back to this House and give an accurate statement about what is really happening to the police funding in this country?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that we have been protecting police funding since 2015. We have made this financial year, nearly £1 billion extra is available to police, and we have indeed put extra money into police. My right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, announced the £100 million extra that is going into key areas in relation to dealing with knife crime, and we've been protecting police funding since 2015.
Shailesh Bara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister earlier made reference to the British Indian diaspora. Would she agree with me that the diaspora should be commended for the fact that, despite comprising 4% of the UK population, they actually contribute some 10% of taxes to the Treasury?
Can I say to my right honourable friend, I'm very happy to welcome their contribution that the Indian diaspora are making to our country. He's referenced the economic contribution they're making through their taxes. Of course, many of them are running businesses that are employing people up and down the country and successfully doing that. Many of them are successfully exporting from this country and supporting our economy. But they also play a very important role in our society, and I'm very happy to welcome that and to congratulate them on it.
Caroline Lucas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This Friday, young people across the UK will again be calling for more urgent action on the climate emergency. So far, every party leader except the Prime Minister has agreed to meet members of this extraordinary uprising. Following a speech at Davos and a meeting with Pope Francis, 16-year-old Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who sparked this global uprising, will visit Parliament on the 23rd of April. So my question is very simple. Will the Prime Minister agree to meet Greta and hear direct from the young people when she's here?
Can I say to the honourable lady, she says, will I hear direct from young people about the issues that they're concerned about in relation to the environment and climate change? I do that, and this gives me an opportunity to congratulate congratulate a school in my own constituency, St Mary's Catholic Primary School, that has won 5 Green Flag Awards in the last 10 years, that last year won the first ever National Green Heart Hero Award. And I can assure the Honourable Lady that I hear young people often tell about the importance of climate change. This government has a fine record on climate change. One day, the Honourable Lady will actually stand up in this House and welcome the efforts this government has made on climate change.
David Duquette! Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will my right honourable friend confirm again that it is still this government's firm commitment to leave the common fisheries policy and to be negotiating as an independent coastal state no later than December 2020?
Well, first of all, can I thank my honourable friend? He has been consistent in his campaigning on this issue, and I know it's of great importance to his constituents, and we remain committed to establishing fairer fishing policies that truly work for coastal communities. The deal we've agreed with the European Union would see the UK leave the common fisheries policy, providing the UK with full control of its waters as an independent coastal state. We remain committed to coming out of the common fisheries policy.
Drew Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Department of Work and Pensions ministerial responses to written questions have stated, and I quote, "Universal credit should not leave councils out of pocket." Yet, despite Highland Council providing evidence to show costs of £2.5 million, including £640,000 of additional administration costs, they still have no offer from our government. Mr. Speaker, they're doing a runner, and every household in the Highlands is bearing the costs of universal credit. Isn't it time her government paid their bill?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman, I refer him to the answers I gave earlier in relation to universal credit and the importance of this system, which is actually encouraging people into work. 200,000 more people in work under universal credit, 700,000 people getting money that they were entitled to that they weren't receiving before. Universal credit is helping people into work and making sure work pays.
Neil O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents, Mark and Panna Wilson, have a little son, Ardy, who has the terrible condition spinal muscular atrophy. He desperately needs the life-changing drug Spinraza, which is available in many other countries. I know the Health Secretary is working on this urgently, and the Prime Minister intervened to create a new route to market for this important drug so that my constituents can get the life-saving treatment that they need.
Well, my honourable friend has raised an important issue, and obviously, as he will appreciate, I think it is important that we first of all want to make sure that patients are getting access to cost-effective, innovative medicines, but at a price that's fair and makes best use of NHS resources. And that's the independent system that we have through NICE, which reviews the evidence. I understand that Biogen has submitted a revised submission to NICE in relation to Spinraza, and a meeting of NICE's Independent Appraisal Committee took place early in March to consider those recommendations. I think it is clear that everybody at the DHSC and in NICE recognises the significance of this drug, but we do need to ensure that the decision which is taken on the basis of clinical aspects together with cost effectiveness, and that's what NICE will be doing in looking at this new offer.
Richard Burden.
Melrose Industries took over GKN last year. They promised ministers that they would back British manufacturing and that it would not reduce the company's defence capacity without the permission of the government. Last week, GKN announced that they intend to close the Kings Norton plant, which makes windscreens for both military and civilian aircraft. So will the Prime Minister tell GKN that it expects the company to abide by both the spirit and the letter of the undertakings that Melrose gave last year?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman, I wasn't aware of the particular issue that he had raised. If I may, I will look into that and I will respond to him in writing.
Thank you. Order. Order. Urgent question. Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs if he will make a statement on the conviction of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong.
Well done. Minister of State Mark Field. Oh, we're very accustomed to seeing the Right Honourable Gentleman.
Alstom.